get back up. I get back up. I get back up.
Another episode of Touched, Not Touched. I left off in my teens. Once again, stressing. If you're a teenager going through this, get counseling, seek help, seek someone you trust. And I mean, really, truly trust, that would not have any hidden agenda, to reach out and share. It's a very tough time in my life. Even though I was looking for love in all the wrong places, and I ended up with 3 beautiful children at a very young age. And then my 4th by the early 20s. I really do believe that the presence of them saved me some kind of way. I think that my focus on them to break the cycle really filled a lot of void that was going on in me emotionally. Matter of fact, there was this one particular loved one noticed early on that I did not hug my children. And this person was like, "You don't hug your children." And of course, this is my early 20s. And early 20s. And she said, "Hug him." And the tension approaching this beautiful child, innocent child, to hug him was unbelievable. And when I did, I broke down and cried, and I was shaking. And I felt free because I was never hugged. At that age, I've never even heard "I love you" from anyone other than this one particular person that was a family member. So, of course, my first hug turned into many, many hugs. And I end up being a hug kind of person from that first initial step. But the lack of nurturing that I received as a child really made it difficult for me to hug that child early on in their lives, early on in our lives, because we pretty much grew up together. So in my 20s, it was about rearing my children. Every now and then, there was still a very big part of me that was still seeking love and wanting to be accepted. And I still had this unbelievable control factor over my head from this abuser. And yet I'm seeking to try to please this abuser and abusers, because it was more than one. And I was trying to seek where they were, to hang out with them, allowing them to run and manipulate my life, control my life, my finances, who I hung out with, where I go, where I did not go, how I was to rear my children. And at that point is when I drew the line. I stepped outside of myself to protect my children, when I didn't even have the capacity to protect myself. But I wanted to make sure that they were not afflicted by the abusers' manipulation that they had on me, and I didn't want them to have it on my children. And then that was conflicting because I grew up in an era to where it is, you respect your elder, you act accordingly, you go in a house, you don't sit until you are asked to be seated, those things. And so it was difficult to even instill in my children very young that who this person was, and they are to be respected. And I will get into the depths of where that came from later on into other sessions. So in my 20s was very, very difficult as well. But it was easy because my focus was on the children, and but yet I was still being pulled and manipulated by the abusers. And once again, never hearing "I'm sorry," never hearing "I love you," never receiving anything nurturing. Not that you are a good mom, that, nothing positive about the type of mother that I was in my 20s. It was more some like a little competition there. And who do you think you are and why do you brag on? It wasn't bragging. I was just wanting to give to my children what I was lacking, and that is to be able to have the confidence to believe in yourself as much as I was able to give, because once again, I didn't have any. So I don't know how I was able to do that, but later on in other sessions, we'll discuss that. So this is my 20s. It's not really a lot going on there, and we'll get into the details. Not really having any steady relationship. It's hard to really put in words how confused and numb I really was. And it. So when you're in your 20s and you have been touched, and you're going through your mind that you have not been touched, because the not touched is the denial of the being touched. If you don't have any children and you just have yourself, and you're trying to swallow that pain with drugs or sex or alcohol or even food. Sometimes we don't realize that we consume food like it's a drug, because we're trying to drown that pain and to suppress it because we don't want to deal with it, because we're still not touched. We're still in denial in our 20s. It's like life goes on, and we're still, for generalizing, having the same abusers around us. And so we're just subjecting ourselves to constant reminder of how inadequate we really are to that abuser. How not valid we are as an individual to that abuser. And it's such a confusing state, and it's really hard to put in words, and that's why I suggested seeking therapy, doing a lot of journaling, do a lot of writing, just whatever will bring you peace. But you cannot find peace and comfort in that alcohol bottle, or in that crack pipe, or in any type of man-made harsh drug. Even if you were to intake cannabis, if you're using that to get up to function, to get up to go to work, to be able to put a smile on your face, we have to really watch those, because if you don't think you're depressed behind all that pain, once again, you're not touched, because you are in denial. We are finding a way to ease the pain through substance abuse, or through people, or through food. So this is 10 minutes. I really didn't want to take them that long, but we are in our 20s now, and if you have no children, then you are probably wondering and getting involved in things to either draw attention or to create some pain for you. And hopefully you're not in your 20s creating pain for others, because that's a fine line to want to inflict the pain that you feel back on someone else. And that's why Touch Not Touched is about healing and breaking the cycle. Until next time, this is Touched Not Touched. Peace.
I get back up.